Most people think happiness is something that happens after life gets easier, after the problem is solved, after the money comes, after the relationship works, after the noise finally quiets down. But that moment rarely arrives. Life stays demanding, unpredictable, messy. And that's why so many people feel like happiness is always just out of reach. They keep waiting, waiting for permission, waiting for circumstances to improve, waiting for a version of life that doesn't require strength. But happy people don't wait. They live differently. Not louder, not more privileged, not luckier, just differently. In this audiobook, Become a Happy Person, 15 Rules. Happy people follow. Most people don't. You are not going to hear fantasy. You are not going to hear surface-level positivity. You are going to hear rules. Quiet rules, practical rules. Rules happy people follow even when life is heavy. Because happiness is not a mood. It's a system. And systems work even on bad days. Now let me be clear from the start. This audiobook is not about forcing a smile. It's not about pretending pain doesn't exist. And it's not about becoming emotionally numb. Real happiness includes sadness, includes loss, includes disappointment. Happy people don't avoid pain. They know how to carry it without breaking. That's the difference. In the next hours, you'll move through 15 rules, not philosophies, that reshape how you experience life. You'll learn why happy people stop arguing with reality, why they protect their energy ruthlessly, why they don't chase joy. They design it, why they let go faster, why they forgive earlier, why they don't confuse excitement with fulfillment. And most importantly, why happiness is built in ordinary moments, not extraordinary ones. Here's the first truth you need to hear. If you're waiting for life to calm down before you allow yourself to be happy, you will wait forever. Happy people understand something early. Life does not get easier. You get wiser. And wisdom changes everything. Now listen closely. Unhappy people outsource happiness. They tie it to people, to outcomes, to timing, to approval. Happy people internalize it. They decide what matters. They choose what they engage with. They stop reacting to everything. They live by rules, even when emotions try to take over. That's why this audiobook is structured the way it is. Not motivation, rules. Because motivation fades, rules remain. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt genuinely peaceful? Not excited, not distracted, but calm. Not because something amazing happened, but because nothing was pulling you a chapter inside. That feeling is not rare, it's trained. And most people never train it. Rule 1 begins with a hard truth most people avoid. Happy people stop trying to control everything. They focus on what's theirs to carry and release the rest. But before we go there, you need to understand why chasing happiness directly never works. Because happiness is not something you grab. It's something that emerges when your life is aligned. Aligned with your values. Aligned with your limits. Aligned with reality. Misalignment creates anxiety. Alignment creates peace. And peace is the foundation of real happiness. This audiobook is not about becoming positive. It's about becoming stable. Emotionally, mentally, internally. Because stability outlasts mood. And people who master stability rarely feel lost, even when life hurts. Now breathe. Slow down. Let this be the moment you stop trying to feel happy and start learning how happy people actually live. Because once you see these rules, you won't be able to unsee them. And once you start living them, life feels lighter, not because it changed, but because you did. Rule 1 is uncomfortable, but it's freeing, and it changes everything that follows. Chapter 2. Rule 1. Happy people stop fighting reality. Most people waste an incredible amount of energy fighting what already is. They argue with the past. They resist the present. They negotiate with things that are not negotiable. And that inner resistance quietly drains happiness every single day. Happy people learn something early. Reality does not need your approval. It does not need your agreement. It simply is. And the moment you stop fighting it, something powerful happens. Your energy returns. Unhappy people ask, why is this happening to me? How do I make this stop? When will things go back to normal? Happy people ask a different question. What is this asking of me? That shift changes everything. Acceptance is not giving up. It is seeing clearly. It is understanding where your influence ends and where peace begins. Now listen carefully. Fighting reality feels productive. It feels like you're engaged, like you care, like you're doing something. But internally, it creates tension. And tension is the enemy of happiness. Happy people don't deny pain. They deny unnecessary suffering. Suffering comes from resistance. Pain comes from life. Pain passes. Resistance lingers. Now think about how often you replay moments that are already over. Conversations you wish went differently. Choices you regret. Outcomes you can't change. Every replay is a silent argument with reality. And reality never loses. Happy people drop the argument. Not because they don't care, but because they value peace more than being right. Now here's a hard truth. You cannot build happiness on top of "this shouldn't be happening." That foundation cracks every time life surprises you. Happy people build happiness on "this is happening. Now what?" That question restores agency. Now let's talk about control. Unhappy people try to control outcomes. Happy people control responses. Control over response creates stability. Stability creates calm. Calm creates happiness. It's a chain, and it starts with acceptance. Now pause. Think about one thing in your life right now you've been resisting. Not actively, quietly. That resistance is costing you more than you realize. The moment you stop fighting it, your mind frees up. Now let me say this clearly. Acceptance does not mean you like what happened. It means you stop letting it dominate your inner world. Happy people grieve. They feel disappointed. They feel hurt. But they don't live there. They visit, then move forward. Now here's the paradox. The faster you accept reality, the faster you can change what's changeable. Resistance delays progress. Acceptance accelerates it. Now let's prepare for Rule 2. Because once you stop fighting reality, you have to decide what deserves your energy. Happy people are ruthless about this. They don't give energy to everything. They protect it. And protection is the next rule. Chapter 3. Rule 2. Happy people protect their energy. Energy is your real currency. Not time, not money, not opportunity. Energy. You can have time with no energy and do nothing with it. You can have money with no energy and feel empty. You can have opportunity with no energy and let it pass. Happy people understand this early. That's why they guard their energy more carefully than their schedule. Unhappy people leak energy everywhere. They argue with people who won't change. They explain themselves to those who don't listen. They stay in conversations that drain them. They say yes when their body is screaming no. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they feel exhausted, irritable, disconnected from joy. Happy people don't live like that. They are selective, not cold, not selfish. Selective. They ask one quiet question before giving their energy. Is this worth it? Now listen carefully. Protecting your energy is not about avoiding responsibility. It's about avoiding unnecessary emotional labor. Happy people still work hard. They still show up. They still care. But they don't carry what isn't theirs. They don't absorb other people's chaos. They don't internalize other people's moods. They don't personalize everything. This boundary is invisible, but powerful. Now think about how often you replay conversations in your head. How often you overthink someone's tone, someone's silence, someone's reaction. That replay is energy leaving your body. Happy people don't replay. They respond, then release. Now let's talk about emotional boundaries. Happy people allow themselves to feel, but they don't allow feelings to hijack their entire day. They notice emotions without drowning in them. They don't suppress, they don't dramatize, they observe. And observation creates space. Space creates calm. Calm creates happiness. Now here's a hard truth. Not everything deserves a reaction. Most things don't. Happy people understand that reacting to everything is a fast way to lose peace. So they slow down, they pause before responding. They choose silence more often. They don't rush to prove or defend. And that restraint preserves energy. Now pause. Think about what drains you most. Is it work, or is it thinking about work? Is it people, or is it your expectations of them? Is it problems, or is it your resistance to them? Often, it's not the situation. It's the story you keep telling yourself about it. Happy people shorten the story. They deal with what's real, not imagined futures. Now here's something important. Protecting your energy will upset some people because they're used to accessing you freely. Your attention, your availability, your emotional labor. When you pull back, they may call you distant, different, selfish. Let them. Happiness requires boundaries, and boundaries are misunderstood by those who benefited from your lack of them. Now understand this, you don't need to explain your boundaries. Explaining invites negotiation. Happy people state, then stand, quietly. Now let me say this clearly. You are not required to attend every argument you're invited to. You are not required to fix everyone's emotions. You are not required to carry weight that isn't yours. The moment you realize that, your nervous system relaxes, and happiness becomes possible again. Rule 3 builds on this. Once you protect your energy, you must decide where to place it, because happy people don't spread themselves thin. They invest deeply, and that investment changes how life feels. Chapter 4. Rule 3. Happy people invest their attention intentionally. Attention is not neutral. Whatever you give attention to grows. Happy people understand this, and most people don't. Unhappy people scatter attention everywhere. They start 10 things and finish none. They think about everyone else's problems before their own. They worry about outcomes they cannot influence. They replay the past and rehearse the future, all while missing the present. And slowly, life begins to feel thin. Busy, but empty. Happy people do the opposite. They choose where their attention lives, not based on urgency, not based on noise, but based on value. Now listen carefully. Attention is not the same as awareness. Happy people are aware of many things, but they don't live in all of them. They notice the world without letting it pull them apart. They invest attention where it nourishes them. Now think about this. When was the last time you were fully present with one thing? One conversation, one walk, one task, one moment. No multitasking, no mental noise, no checking, just presence. That state is not rare, it's chosen. Happy people choose presence on purpose. Now here's the hard truth. Distraction is not harmless. It fragments your experience of life. When attention is constantly split, joy cannot settle. Because joy requires full engagement. Now let's talk about focus. Happy people focus deeply on a few things instead of shallowly on many. They know what matters to them, and they let the rest be background noise. This clarity creates peace, because peace comes from knowing you're investing your life where it counts. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, where is most of my attention going lately? Is it feeding me or draining me? Is it building my life or just filling time? That question alone can change everything. Now let's talk about comparison again. Comparison is attention misused. Every time you compare your life to someone else's highlight, you leave your own life unattended. Happy people stop doing this. They admire without measuring. They observe without judging. They learn without resenting, because comparison doesn't improve your life. It just distracts you from it. Now here's a powerful shift. Happy people don't try to be everywhere. They allow themselves to miss out. They accept that choosing one thing means not choosing another. And that acceptance creates freedom. You cannot live deeply if you are afraid of missing everything. Happy people choose depth over breadth. Now let me say this clearly. Your life feels the way it does because of where your attention lives most days. Not because of one big event, but because of thousands of small moments. Redirecting attention is how happiness slowly rebuilds itself. Rule 4 takes this further, because once you invest attention intentionally, you must learn how to let go. Happy people release faster than others. They don't carry everything with them. And that lightness is not accidental. It's trained. Chapter 5. Rule 4. Happy people let go faster. Holding on feels responsible. Letting go feels risky. That's why most people carry far more than they should. Old arguments, past mistakes, unspoken resentment, versions of life that didn't happen. And they don't realize how heavy this load is until they finally put it down. Happy people learn something most people resist. You don't need closure to move on. You need permission, and they give it to themselves. They don't wait for apologies that may never come. They don't wait for explanations that won't satisfy. They don't wait for the past to make sense. They release. Now listen carefully. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means stopping the emotional replay. Happy people refuse to relive pain more times than necessary. They allow themselves to feel it once, fully, and then they stop feeding it. Unhappy people keep feeding it. They revisit it in their minds. They tell the story again. They add new details. They sharpen the emotion. And slowly, the pain becomes chapter of their identity. Happy people interrupt this cycle. They say, "This happened. It hurt, and I don't need to live here." That decision is power. Now let's talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is misunderstood. It's not saying what happened was okay. It's saying you are done paying for it. Happy people forgive early, not for others, but for themselves. Because resentment is expensive, it drains energy, it clouds attention, it keeps the nervous system tense, and a tense system cannot feel happiness. Now pause. Think about what you're still holding. Not because you want to, but because you never decided to release it. That weight is optional. Now here's something important. Letting go does not happen once. It happens again and again. Every time the thought returns. Every time the memory resurfaces. Every time the emotion tries to reclaim space. Happy people don't fight the return. They gently let go again. This repetition trains the mind. Now let's talk about expectations. Expectations are attachments. When you expect people to behave a certain way, life to unfold on your timeline, happiness to look a specific way, you set yourself up for disappointment. Happy people loosen expectations. They prefer openness over rigidity. They allow life to surprise them. Not because they are passive, but because flexibility reduces suffering. Now listen carefully. Rigid minds break. Flexible minds bend and recover. Happy people bend. Now let me say this clearly. You cannot be happy while carrying everything. You must choose what stays and what goes. And happy people choose lightness, not because life is easy, but because they refuse to make it heavier than it needs to be. Rule 5 builds directly on this, because once you let go of what weighs you down, you must learn how to appreciate what remains. Happy people practice this differently, not through forced gratitude, but through awareness. And that awareness changes how life feels. Chapter 6. Rule 5. Happy people notice what is already good. Most people wait for happiness to arrive before they notice life. Happy people notice life, and happiness follows. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about happiness. Gratitude is not pretending everything is perfect. It's seeing clearly what is still working, even when other things are not. Unhappy people scan life for what's missing. What went wrong? What could be better? What hasn't arrived yet? Happy people scan life differently. They notice what remains, the breath that's steady, the body that still moves, the quiet moment that wasn't promised, not dramatically, quietly. And that quiet noticing changes how the nervous system feels. Now, listen carefully. Happy people don't force gratitude. They don't recite lists when they're exhausted. They don't shame themselves for feeling low. They simply notice. They notice small stability in a chaotic world. And stability calms the mind. Now think about this. Most of your days are not extraordinary. They're ordinary. And most people miss them entirely. They rush through meals. They scroll through conversations. They sleep through moments that could have been peaceful. Happy people slow down just enough to register life. Not everything, just enough. That registration builds a sense of fullness. Now let's talk about appreciation. Appreciation is attention with warmth. Happy people appreciate what's present, without clinging to it. They don't panic about losing it. They don't demand it last forever. They enjoy it now. Now pause. When was the last time you truly appreciated something simple? Not because you were told to, but because you noticed it naturally. That feeling didn't come from circumstances. It came from awareness, and awareness is trainable. Now let's talk about perspective. Happy people zoom out regularly. They remind themselves, this moment is temporary. This feeling will pass. This day is one page, not the whole story. That perspective softens difficulty. It doesn't erase it, but it makes it bearable. Now here's a powerful truth. Happiness grows in proportion to presence. When you're present, you don't need constant excitement. You don't need novelty. You find depth in what's already there. Now listen closely. This does not mean settling. Happy people still grow. They still want more. They still improve. But they don't postpone happiness until improvement is complete. They allow happiness to exist alongside effort. That balance is everything. Now here's something important. Noticing what's good doesn't make you complacent. It makes you grounded. Grounded people move forward with less anxiety. Less anxiety means clearer thinking. Clear thinking supports better decisions. This is how happiness and growth coexist. Rule 6 deepens this further, because once you notice what's good, you must learn how to stop chasing constant pleasure. Happy people understand the difference between pleasure and fulfillment, and that understanding protects them from burnout. Chapter 7. Rule 6. Happy people don't chase constant pleasure. Most people confuse happiness with stimulation. They think happiness is feeling good all the time, excited, entertained, distracted from discomfort. So they chase pleasure. More scrolling, more noise, more novelty, more escape. And when pleasure fades, as it always does, they feel emptier than before. Happy people understand something most people learn too late. Pleasure is a spike. Happiness is a state. Pleasure rises quickly and crashes. Happiness settles slowly and stays. Now listen carefully. Happy people enjoy pleasure. They are not rigid. They laugh. They celebrate. They indulge. But they don't depend on pleasure to feel okay. They don't panic when stimulation is gone. They don't feel lost in quiet. They don't need constant highs to tolerate their own lives. That's the difference. Now let's talk about why chasing pleasure backfires. Pleasure trains the nervous system to crave intensity. The more you chase it, the less satisfied you become. Normal moments feel dull. Stillness feels uncomfortable. Ordinary life feels empty. Happy people retrain their nervous system. They become comfortable with neutral, with calm, with simplicity. And that comfort creates peace. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, how often do I reach for something? Not because I need it, but because I don't want to feel something. That reaching is not wrong. It's human. But happy people become aware of it. And awareness changes behavior. Now let's talk about fulfillment. Fulfillment is quieter than pleasure. It comes from meaning, from contribution, from alignment with values. Fulfillment doesn't spike. It grounds. Happy people build lives rich in fulfillment. They do things that matter, even when those things aren't exciting. They invest in relationships. They create. They grow. They give. And that creates a deep sense of okayness. Now here's the truth. You can feel fulfilled even on a hard day. You can feel peaceful even while grieving. You can feel stable even without excitement. That's happiness, not constant joy, but inner steadiness. Now listen closely. Happy people don't try to eliminate discomfort, they integrate it. They don't need life to feel good all the time to feel okay. And that freedom is powerful. Now let's talk about boredom. Boredom is not an enemy. It's a doorway. When you stop numbing boredom, creativity wakes up, reflection deepens, clarity emerges. Happy people allow boredom. They don't rush to kill it. They sit, they walk, they think. And in that space, life reorganizes itself. Now pause. Think about the last time you were truly bored. Without a screen, what came up? Restlessness? Ideas? Thoughts you'd been avoiding? That space is not dangerous, it's fertile. Happy people spend time there. Now let me say this clearly. If you build a life that only works when you're distracted, it will collapse when you're alone. Happy people build lives that feel okay in silence, because silence is unavoidable. Now Rule 7 builds on this foundation. Once you stop chasing pleasure, you must learn how to accept yourself as you are. Not complacency, acceptance. And acceptance changes everything. Chapter 8. Rule 7. Happy people accept themselves as they are. Most people think self-acceptance means giving up, settling, lowering standards, stopping growth. Happy people know that's not true. Self-acceptance is not resignation. It is peace without self-violence. It is the decision to stop treating yourself like a problem that needs fixing before you're allowed to be okay. Now listen carefully. You can work on yourself without being at war with yourself. Unhappy people don't realize how much energy they spend criticizing who they are. They replay mistakes. They compare constantly. They judge their own emotions. They shame themselves for not being better yet. That internal pressure doesn't create growth. It creates exhaustion. Happy people remove that pressure. They say, "This is where I am, and I can still move forward from here." That sentence alone changes everything. Now let's be clear. Acceptance does not mean you stop improving. It means you stop withholding peace until improvement is complete. Because improvement never ends. And if happiness is postponed until perfection, it never arrives. Now pause. Think about how you talk to yourself on a bad day, when you're tired, when you make a mistake, when you don't show up the way you wanted to. Is your inner voice kind, or is it cruel? Happy people change that voice, not by lying to themselves, but by becoming fair. They don't exaggerate flaws. They don't minimize effort. They don't turn one mistake into a character judgment. They correct, without condemning. Now here's a truth that matters. You cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love. Growth fueled by self-rejection is unstable. It burns hot, then collapses. Growth fueled by self-acceptance is steady. It lasts. Now let's talk about comparison again. Comparison erodes self-acceptance. Every time you measure yourself against someone else's highlight, you abandon your own context. Happy people stop doing this. They understand. Different paths, different timelines, different battles. They stay in their lane. Now listen closely. Self-acceptance also means allowing yourself to be human, to have low days, to feel doubt, to feel sadness without panicking. Happy people don't freak out when they feel off. They don't label it failure. They say, "This is chapter of the experience." And because they don't resist it, it passes faster. Now let me say this clearly. You are allowed to be happy before you become everything you want to be. Happiness is not a reward for improvement. It's fuel for it. When you stop attacking yourself, you free energy. That energy can finally be used to build. Rule 8 builds directly on this. Because once you accept yourself, you must learn how to choose your thoughts intentionally. Happy people are not controlled by every thought that enters their mind. They curate their inner world. And that skill protects happiness long-term. Chapter 9. Rule 8. Happy people choose their thoughts carefully. Most people believe they are their thoughts. Whatever appears in the mind feels like truth, feels personal, feels permanent. Happy people learn something that quietly changes everything. Thoughts are events, not commands. They come, they pass. They do not define you unless you let them stay. Unhappy people let every thought take over. One negative idea becomes a spiral. One worry becomes a future. One doubt becomes an identity. Happy people interrupt this. They don't fight thoughts. They don't suppress them. They select which ones they engage with. Now listen carefully. You don't control the first thought. You control the second. That's where power lives. The first thought is habit. The second thought is choice. Happy people practice this daily. When a negative thought appears, they pause. They ask, is this useful? Is this true? Is this helping me right now? If the answer is no, they let it go. Not dramatically, not angrily. They just don't follow it. Now pause. Think about how many thoughts you believe without questioning. Thoughts about your future, your worth, your limitations, other people's intentions. Most of those thoughts are assumptions, not facts. Happy people know this. They don't let assumptions run their inner world. Now let's talk about mental hygiene. Just like your body needs regular care, your mind does too. Happy people don't consume mental junk all day. They limit exposure to negativity. They reduce constant news intake. They step back from endless opinion cycles. Because what you consume becomes what you think, and what you think becomes how you feel. Now here's a critical truth. You cannot have a peaceful mind while feeding it chaos. Happy people are intentional about what they let in. Not rigid, not disconnected. Intentional. Now let's talk about rumination. Rumination is the mind chewing on the same thought again and again. It feels productive, like you're solving something, but it rarely solves anything. It just exhausts you. Happy people recognize rumination early. They shift attention. They move their body. They change environment. They don't sit inside their thoughts indefinitely. Now listen closely. Thoughts lose power when you stop arguing with them. You don't need to convince yourself they're wrong. You just need to stop feeding them. Attention is fuel. Happy people remove the fuel. Now pause. Notice how this feels. Lighter, less tense, more spacious. That space is where happiness lives. Rule 9 takes this even deeper, because once you choose your thoughts, you must learn how to simplify your life. Happy people reduce complexity. And simplicity is one of the most underrated happiness strategies in existence. Chapter 10. Rule 9. Happy people simplify their lives. Complexity feels important. Busy schedules, endless options, constant decisions. Too many commitments layered on top of each other. Most people believe complexity means progress. Happy people know the opposite. Complexity creates mental noise. Simplicity creates peace. Happy people intentionally reduce. They don't try to do everything. They don't try to keep up with everyone. They don't try to optimize every detail of life. They ask one quiet question again and again. What actually matters? And then they remove the rest. Now listen carefully. Unhappy people are exhausted not because life is hard, but because life is overcrowded. Too many obligations. Too many expectations, too many voices pulling in different directions. Happy people clear space. They say no more often. They cancel what doesn't align. They stop overloading their days, not because they're lazy, but because they value clarity. Now let's talk about decision fatigue. Every decision costs energy. What to wear, what to eat, where to go, who to respond to, what to prioritize. When everything is a decision, the mind becomes tired. Happy people reduce decisions. They create routines. They standardize habits. They remove unnecessary choices. And that frees mental energy. Energy that can be used for living, not deciding. Now pause. Think about how many decisions you make daily that don't actually improve your life. Those decisions drain happiness quietly. Happy people eliminate them. Now let's talk about possessions. More stuff means more maintenance, more cleaning, more organizing, more mental load. Happy people don't chase minimalism as an aesthetic. They chase ease. They keep what serves them. They release what complicates life. Less to manage means more room to breathe. Now let's talk about commitments. Happy people are careful with yes. They don't overpromise, they don't overschedule, they don't fill every gap with obligation. They leave space. Space to rest, space to think, space to enjoy unplanned moments. That space is where happiness lives. Now here's a hard truth. You cannot be happy if your life never slows down. Constant motion feels productive, but it disconnects you from yourself. Happy people intentionally slow life down. They don't rush everything. They don't fill silence immediately. They allow pauses. Now listen closely. Simplicity is not emptiness. It's intentional fullness. A few meaningful relationships, a few fulfilling habits, a few clear priorities. That's enough. Now pause. Imagine your life simplified. Fewer obligations, less noise, clearer priorities. Notice how your body responds. Relief, calm, space. That feeling is not fantasy. It's a result of design. Happy people design their lives this way. Rule 10 brings us to something essential. Because once life is simplified, you must learn how to connect deeply with others. Not constantly, not superficially, but meaningfully. And meaningful connection is one of the strongest predictors of happiness there is. Chapter 11. Rule 10 through 15. How happy people live. Daily happiness does not come from one rule. It comes from how rules work together. At this point in the audiobook, something important has already happened. You've slowed down. You've softened resistance. You've begun to feel how happiness is less about chasing and more about arranging your inner world. Now we complete the picture. Not with intensity, with integration. Rule 10. Happy people connect deeply, not constantly. Happy people do not collect people. They cultivate connection. They don't need many relationships. They need real ones. They listen without waiting to speak. They show up without performing. They allow themselves to be seen, imperfectly. They don't confuse being busy socially with being fulfilled emotionally. One honest conversation nourishes more than 100 shallow interactions. Happy people choose depth over volume, and depth creates belonging. Rule 11. Happy people move their bodies, even when they don't feel like it. This is not about appearance. It's about chemistry. Movement changes mood. It clears mental static. It grounds emotions back into the body. Happy people don't wait to feel motivated. They walk, they stretch, they breathe deeply, they move. Not to punish themselves, but to return to themselves. A moving body carries emotions better than a still one. Rule 12. Happy people rest without guilt. Most people rest anxiously. They scroll, they distract, they half rest while thinking about what they should be doing. Happy people rest deliberately. They understand that rest is not weakness, it is maintenance. They stop when they're tired. They sleep without apology. They allow recovery, because joy cannot live in a burned-out system. Rule 13. Happy people accept that life has seasons. They don't demand happiness every day. They understand ebb and flow. There are seasons of growth, seasons of stillness, seasons of loss, seasons of renewal. Happy people don't panic when a season shifts. They don't cling. They don't resist. They adapt. An adaptation keeps the heart light. Rule 14. Happy people live by values, not moods. Moods change hourly. Values endure. Happy people act in alignment with what matters, even when they feel low. They keep promises. They speak honestly. They choose integrity. And that alignment creates inner peace. Because nothing is more exhausting than living against yourself. Rule 15. Happy people stop postponing life. They don't wait to be happier later. They allow happiness now, alongside effort, grief, ambition, and uncertainty. They don't say, "I'll be happy when..." They say, "I'm allowed to feel okay while I'm becoming." And that permission changes everything. Now pause. Feel how different this is from chasing happiness. This is building it. Quietly, patiently, daily. Happiness is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up as ease, as steadiness, as an ability to breathe inside your own life. If this audiobook resonated with you, let it settle, not as inspiration, but as instruction. Like this, not for the algorithm, but as a reminder that happiness is practiced, not found. Leave a comment with the rule that changed how you see your life. Subscribe, not for more motivation, but for deeper alignment. And share this with someone who is doing everything right, except allowing themselves to be okay. I'll leave you with one final line. Carry it with you. Happiness is not a destination. It's how you walk through the life you already have. Tell me what audiobook you want next. One more chapter, bonus chapter. The quiet life that lasts. There is a version of happiness no one posts about. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need witnesses. It's the quiet life that lasts. This is the happiness that shows up when you wake up without dread, when your mind isn't racing before the day begins, when your body feels safe enough to relax, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with your life. Happy people don't live in constant joy. They live in emotional permission. Permission to feel tired without panic. Permission to feel sad without shame. Permission to feel content without guilt. Most people don't allow this. They think happiness must be justified, earned, proven, so they keep moving the finish line. Happy people stop moving it. They arrive where they are. Now listen carefully. This chapter is not about adding more rules. It's about integration. It's about what happens when these rules become habits, and habits become character. Life begins to feel less sharp. You still work, you still strive, you still care, but you no longer feel hunted by your own thoughts. You no longer feel behind in an imaginary race. You stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" and start asking, "Is this aligned?" Alignment is the deepest form of happiness. When your actions match your values. When your pace matches your nervous system. When your goals match your capacity. Happy people protect this alignment fiercely. They don't let urgency steal it. They don't let comparison distort it. They don't let other people's expectations rewrite it. They live from the inside out. Now pause. Think about the moments in your life that felt most peaceful. They were not moments of achievement. They were moments of presence. A walk without headphones. A conversation without performance. A night of sleep without anxiety. That peace is not rare. It's recoverable. Happy people recover it again and again. They notice when they drift. They return when they forget. They forgive themselves quickly. And slowly, the inner world becomes a place they don't need to escape from. That is the goal. Not constant happiness, but a life you don't need to run from. Now let me leave you with something simple and powerful. You do not need to overhaul your life to be happier. You need to soften your grip on control, on expectation, on perfection. Happiness arrives when you stop squeezing life too tightly. Let it breathe. Let yourself breathe. And remember this, when the world feels heavy again, you are not failing at life. You are learning how to live it gently. That gentleness is strength, and it's available to you. Every day you choose it.